As soon as, yeah, we've got it working now. All right, welcome to Stockholm. My name is Frederik Andersen. I've been working as a bespoke tailor for some 25 years now. I started out at the theaters in Stockholm, working at the Royal Dramatic Theatre as a tailor, also at the opera, and then later on to all the small ones. Until I realized that costume making wasn't really my deal. I was much more interested in just doing black suits, smokings, dinner jackets, just making that perfect fit. And to gain that, I found the last existing tailor house there was in Scandinavia, which luckily was based in Stockholm. When I entered the doors of this old tailoring, it was two old guys in their 70s, still working by the old methods. They were both taught in this very company, started out when they were 14, both of them, and had just kept going. At that time, the company had some 60 tailors working in the workshops. When I found them, they were the only two left. But the good thing about this place was that it was like a time capsule. They had not been developing or evaluating anything for the last 50 years. So they were pretty much just doing what they were taught. They were not very friendly with the customers. They were not very friendly with each other. They were quite sick of the whole trade and having to argue with customers and clients over the pricing. Since you can buy so cheap clothing, why should anybody actually go to a tailor then and not knowing what you're getting? They were brought up in a time where tailoring was the only thing, and there were only just levels of skills and tailoring houses. So it was not a thriving business I walked into, and they were not at all interested in having me. So I started out just presenting my very best, thinking that I was a gift to them, that I was ready to take on and learn or just actually showing them what I could do. And they pretty much just slammed the door in my face. So a few weeks later, I swallowed my pride and I went back thinking, well, maybe I need to find a way in here. And maybe I should just get on my knees and try to see if I could start over, be an apprentice. So I went back a month later and I suggested them that I should start there as an apprentice, just learning from them what they knew. And to tell you the truth, they didn't even remember my first visit, so I had made no impression on them at all. And they were just as uninterested as you can imagine. They were just thinking about how to make it through the day without arguing too much with each other. But the second time I went there, I realized this is really the place where I want to be. This is where the magic happens. So I started coming back each week. Each Friday, I went back there. And after a few weeks, I was allowed to enter the workshop just for a chat. And the next week, I brought them a bottle of whiskey, and we had another chat. And that went on for a couple of more weeks, and then in the end, they agreed to take me on as an apprentice, but without giving me any promises at all. They just basically said, "There's no future in this, so just get out what you can, do something else. This is not what you want to do." And they had really decided they would not take on any more clients, not take on any more orders. They would just finish what they had in the order book, which would be another 5 months, and then pretty much just slam the door. This company was, at that time, 130 years old and had been ongoing in Stockholm for all those years as well. So there was a lot of knowledge kept in the walls. And what you need to know about handcraft, it is that you need to learn it from someone who knows the skills. You cannot read these things. You cannot read these books and actually find the answers. I read all those books that Jeffrey showed us. I've been through them all, and they all have the answers for everything. But when you actually put it out to the real life, it doesn't really work. And when it comes down to taking the measurements, it is really just about the tailor and the drafter taking your own measurements, adapting them to your own system and your own vision of that body and where you want to go from there. So I started as an apprentice there. The first morning, the old tailor told me, just forget everything you think you know, because you know nothing. And maybe I can make a tailor of you. We'll take it 1 hour at the time, and if you don't fuck up, we'll keep going. And I'm still here, so I guess I did something right. So what we're doing nowadays is we base everything on the classic skills and the old tailoring concepts, but we are not that interested in just doing what people used to do. We are much more interested in making tailoring a part of your life. Tailoring should not be bespoke tailoring should not be the only thing you have your interest in. We try to connect this with art and architecture and put it into a perspective of a whole life. And that has brought us on a lot of new customers and new clients who like suits. They love blazers, but they also want all the other things, because all the other things are the very difficult things for a grown man to find. You can look good in a suit, you can look good in a pair of shorts when you are on holiday, but the time in between there, it's the most difficult way to dress with dignity and still with a bit of youth and contemporary touch. So that's the area that we are mostly exploring at the moment. We're making workwear jackets, we're making jumpsuits, we're making jackets, but also combined with classic, super well-fitted suits and smokings and overcoats. So that's why we call it much more of a contemporary tailoring business. We try to take care of everything instead of just bits and bobs or the masterpieces. The big thing about taking the measurements or even transforming things into 3D, which I also find very interesting, is that the missing link in all these is that you often forget the client. So I could just stand here and make a pattern of a pair of trousers, and you would all find that it looks nice, but what we actually do is that I would like to make a pattern for a pair of trousers for someone, and just taking this person's preferences and putting into paper instead of just making up stuff. So I need a volunteer. Do you have a gentleman who would like a pair of trousers? We got one. Excellent. Perfect.
I'm Gerald.
Hi, Gerald. Welcome. Yes, remove the jacket. So, Gerald, what would your favorite pair of trousers look like? Something like that. You like it with a bit of space and
Cell phone in here.
you have a cell phone. Yep.
Wallet in here.
Wallet, no pleats, and you always wear belt.
No, I'd rather not have a belt.
You'd rather not have a belt.
Yeah.
Okay, good. There are ways to get around that.
Yeah.
Good. But then I'll start by taking your measurements. Maybe we'll just stand here so people actually could see. What I do is I start from the back and then I work my way around. So first measure would be where the waist, and I always take the measure exactly where I want the waist of the trousers to be. So I wouldn't take it in the natural waist or anywhere below. I would take it exactly where I want the trousers to fit. Now, are you comfortable with me sharing your measurements?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, the first measure for the waist of the trousers, and I take this measure quite tight because this is how tight the trousers should sit to stay in place. I started learning pattern making when I was in London at Savile Row at a tailor house called Henry Poole's. So I am still working in inches when it comes to taking measurements. So the waist is 37. The next important measure is the hip. In this case, it would be 41. And I also take this quite tight into the body. 41. And then I would take the measure, if I can separate the legs a bit, the thigh, which is 33. No, sorry, 23 it is, of course. Then I will measure from where the waistband meets the leg to the length of the trouser, which in this case is 38. And then I will have the length of the inside leg, which is 29. Good. That's all the measures I need. Then I'll start working from that. Excellent. So when I was in London, I was taught the fly line system. It works from the fly line, and you basically just make the trousers from that point. I worked with that system for some 10 years. Then I gradually slided into the center line system, where you work from the center and basically build the trousers on both sides. Then I moved on to a system I kind of developed myself, which is the sideline system, where you pretty much build the whole trouser from a straight line in the side and build everything from that direction, which is more known as jeans making. Also do quite that a lot with much more of a straight side seam. It looks good on some trousers. It's worthless if you want a suit trouser. It turned out it looks good when you stand straight up, but as soon as you start moving around, the leg will start bending. So I moved back to the center line system, and I pretty much redid the whole thing, really just deciding that maybe I should just start over and really just try to make a system that works from the body. Since I only make garments based on persons, I don't have to worry about making a pair of trousers that fit to 100 different persons. I just need to worry about making Gerald's trousers being exactly the way that he wants, or maybe not the way that he wants, but somewhere in between what he thinks he wants and what I think would fit him the best, which is probably the key to a well-fitted suit or pair of trousers. There's an old saying that the customer always knows best, but when it comes to tailoring, it's quite the opposite. So the centerline system, or let's say just my system, works from the center line. And what I do is I start up here. This would be the waist. And now I see that I just, yeah, okay. So I go from the top and I take this measure 38, maybe I should write it in a bigger, which is the outseam. And I just put that. And then I turn the measurement to go from the bottom to have the inside length of the trousers, which was 29. Now, the body is constructed, the most of us has a longer lower leg than we have the upper leg. So in theory, you take half of this 29, which is 14 and a half, and then add another 2 inches. That would be where the knee is. And from these measures, I just fill in the whole. Now, you're welcome to ask any questions if you have any. I know all about you. Sorry. To make it look like I'm actually making a pair of trousers for you, yes. No, I probably could do it just by seeing you sit there, but it would not do justice to the whole scenery. Okay, so we have these 4 marks now. So in this case, I would start from the bottom. Your trousers, the ones you're wearing, are, I would say they're around 9 inches at the bottom. So I would just mark out 9 inches with the center line in the middle. So it would be 4.5 plus 4.5. And over the knee, I am thinking you are somewhere around, they would be around 10.5, which is 2 times 5.25. These 2 lines, I'll just start by filling them out. So, since we know you have a waist at 37, I would say half of 37 would be somewhere around 18.5, and half of 18.5 would be 9.25. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I would still work from the center line, adding these measurements, and still work in straight lines, just to have something to work from. Now, you see the trousers are starting to take shape now. So most trousers, for most men in Sweden, at least in Scandinavia, are quite tight. But there is a measure that that always comes back, and that is the front trouser. If you put the trouser down and measure across, it's almost always 13 inches. It's always somewhere between 13 and a half inches. I cannot explain why, but it just seemed to be a golden measure that makes trousers fit. So also remembering that the thigh was 33 and a half, so we need to make sure that the thigh fits in here. This system that I work from now is pretty much that I try to keep as much volume on both sides of the center line to make it fall nice and easily, and also to make the pleat, if you put, or the crease going straight in the middle, not shaping in any funny way. So everything that I add to one side, I will try to add to the other side, just to have that ease to the pattern. So you want this is the fly line. You always add just a bit of extra ease there, because on men's trousers you need that extra. From this point we just shape it. And we just add this extra shape to this one as well. Now, I'm not too keen about this. I think it's a bit too narrow, this. So what I want to do is I just add a bit extra just to make sure that the lines run smoothly, which is probably the most important thing. Because when you put these pieces together, you should just be able to sit by the machine and just run through it. You should never have to force it anyway. So that would be the front trouser. If I were to make a pair of trousers that would look more like the ones Jeffrey were wearing, I would work from the center line, but decrease the whole volume, keeping the waist up here, but just narrowing everything down. If I was good to go for next guy on stage, Ruben's trousers, I would have to decrease everything by quite a lot to get it a real smooth line on that. So as you see, this is all very old school, analog. And what you need to know is that paper has fibers that remind you of the fibers in cloth. So if it runs, you can draw basically everything, but you need to be able to cut it and you need to be able to sew it as well. So a general rule is that you should not fix too much on the lines that you make, focus more on actually just letting the shears run and see how they will align with the lines you put. At this very point at the waist, at the sideline, we could add just a slight angle to that. Since on gentlemen, the trousers they don't sit in a straight line, they often pull down just a bit, just below the belly. Even though we try to stick them up there, they have a tendency of just getting that 3 centimeters lower once you start wearing them. If they do that, it will create just a big part here. By cutting up this bit, this is 2 centimeters, that will just allow them to stay exactly where you want them and look perfectly. So we have the front of the trousers. And basically, when we have the front of the trousers, we just start working from there to make the back of the trousers as well. Now there are the basic lines that we just need to fill in. So we want the back and the front to be equally long, and we want the knee to be in the same place. And also we will fill in the center line. All right, from the foot to the knee, we actually just add 2 seams to the front trouser, since we're aiming for a 9-inch on the half on the foot width and 10.5 on the knee. We didn't put any seam allowance in the pattern on the front side, so we add everything on the back side. All right. Now, to get, depending on how big or how much volume you got on the back side, this angle changes. I probably don't have to tell you this, but I'm just doing it anyway. And since we have quite loose trousers as they are, we don't have to worry too much about this angle. We'll just add just about the same measure as we did from the fly line to the inseam. We'll just add equally much to the back. And since this is the center back, we are aiming for an angle. There's an old system, old saying that 1.5 inch in, 1.5 inch up, and you have the perfect spot to work from. Depending on the volume of the bag, this line is quite important. If you have a big bag, you add the volume by doing this. If you don't have anything at all, you can almost make it square. In this case, I would go for something like this. Just pretty much connect the lines. We will add a dot in the back, and then we will measure our way. So I deduct the seams just about 1 centimeter. So here we are at almost 10 inches. I start from the center back. We don't have any extra seam here since this is the seam we will sew in. I deduct the dot, and to get to 37. Half of that was 18 and a half. So 18 and a half would be here, and then we add the seam. Now, just to make sure that we have enough space across the hip, I will measure from this point, which is, if you imagine, take off a seam, this point would be exactly here. We don't measure in between the legs, we just measure around. So going from that point to the side, and if you measured, take this measure around here, the natural line will be going in that direction. So you will measure from the front to the side, and then from the back line to the side line. So the hip was 41. We have 41 here, 42, 43, 45. So we don't really need to add anything else. We have lots of space just to make the trousers comfortable. And you basically just connect the lines. And just making sure that all the lines work. We'll just check it and see how it runs. I'd say this would be pretty smooth to sew. You should, as I said, it should be all about the lines and just having them run smoothly with each other. You see, these lines are pretty much the same, and all you have to do is swing it a bit, which creates a bit of space as well. When it comes to the inseam, we need to shape that as well. From the foot to the knee, there should be pretty straightforward, and going from that point, it's also quite smooth. So I will just fill in this line. And fill in the dot. And I'd say that this is a pretty good picture of the trousers that Gerald was wearing. You have any questions so far? Anything I can help you with? Nope. Once again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Normally I don't, but it is also because of the dialogue between the tailor and the cutter. So this is what I would do. This is what I do. I take this with the same distance, completely the same distance, and then when I cut the suit, I will add a bit of extra seam allowance on the back, but I won't allow any seam allowance on the front. And then I will leave it to the tailor to see how much he can gather in this area to make a bit of extra ease and movement. But it also depends on how wide the trousers are. If the trousers are wider, you don't need to add anything. If you make super tight trousers, you definitely need to work with these. And again, this is the big difference between working as a bespoke tailor, where we do only garments for specific persons. We don't have to worry about it having to fit to a bigger system. We don't answer to any machines. We don't answer to a factory that has to make these trousers. Any questions will be solved in the dialogue between the tailor and the cutter. And also, this is pretty much as much attention I would give a pair of trousers for a first fitting. Because then measurements are one thing, but still after 25 years, you don't know how the trouser is going to sit. You don't know how it's going to work with the fabric you've chosen, and if things can go wrong in 3D, they certainly also can do that in bespoke tailoring, doing one-offs. This is as far as I go when it comes to the pattern. Then the rest is being taken care of when we do the fitting. Because then I will just allow myself to do as many fittings as I feel like. Normally, one fitting for a pair of trousers is more than enough. But if we have to, we'll fit it 5 times to make it perfect. That's the beauty of bespoke tailoring. And since we are in a position where 80% of our clients are based in Sweden, we can allow ourselves also to just bring them on as many times as we need them. A lot of other tailors around the world travel to their customers, to their clients throughout the world, and they only have one fitting, and then there will be another 6 months before they see them again, and they just pretty much hope for the best. We build much longer relationship with our clients. Most of our clients stay with us for a lifetime. As soon as you enter this family, you won't leave again, because it's not that fun to go shopping after this. So this is the way I make it. Pair of trousers, pattern for a pair of trousers. Would you be interested in that, Gerald? Excellent. All right, guys, that's all I got.
Oh, thank you. I think that was really interesting. And you got a new pair of trousers. You just have to stitch them. So now we come to an important part for the Swedes, and that is fika, coffee breaks. And the fika will be served in the hall mirror to this, and you will go through the market space where you can mingle and see the stands or the booths. We need to be back here at 10:45. Please be back at 10:45. You can also bring your coffee and the breakfast in here if you haven't finished. So let's go get some coffee.